Sichuanese is, so then, okay, we talk about minority language. But then Sichuanese has something like 120 million speakers, right? And then this is quite so then it's difficult to define a language as a minority language when it has speakers more than than German, for example, right? So, but at the same time, so the other thing is that it is. So first of all, it is smaller. It is roughly, so then according to this number, it's roughly 10% of the speakers of Mandarin Chinese, of Putonghua Chinese, right? And then this, then this means that it is 10 times smaller. The other thing is that it is very different from this standard Putonghua Chinese. So then there is an estimate that something like half of the vocabulary is different between the languages, but then also there is a process of greater standardization. Again, so then partly because of the political pressure and partly because just mass media helps in spreading the main variety, and then it is so then the smaller variety is lost, right? And then so essentially what we tried to do, we tried to estimate the so on the one hand, so then we talk about native speakers, right? So the other thing is talking about how much a language is present on the web. So what we try, because one of the things about Sichuanese is that it is a widely spoken language. It is spoken in in lots of contexts. So university education in Sichuan, again, many tutors they also speak. So then this is a language which is used quite widely. But then those speakers in the classroom, if they speak Sichuanese, they write actually in Mandarin Chinese, right? So then in terms of writing, it is underrepresented. And then if you think about ChatGPT, which was the focus of our study, ChatGPT essentially focuses on what is available on the web, what is extracted from the web, and this is the basis for training ChatGPT. And so because of this, what we try to do, we try to estimate the sort of the ratio between GPT and between the three versions. So then we have Putonghua, Mandarin Chinese, we have Sichuanese, and we have Cantonese. And Cantonese is a language with fewer speakers than Sichuanese, but at the same time, it is the language with fairly well developed written presence, right? And because of this, it so then if you make so essentially, for example, the word for potato is completely different in Sichuanese, and then you can see this from the characters. And it's again different from Cantonese, and there is no good relationship either that they are all related. Sichuanese, for example, and Cantonese, they are related, but very much like English and German are related, right? So that there is quite a lot of typological relationship between the languages, but then in terms of the actual words used, they're quite different. And then you can see that potato, sweet potato, corn, chat, cover, correct, etc. Naughty. So lots of words, they are just written differently. And most of the time, you can see that, so what you do, you enter a query to Google in Putonghua Chinese, in Sichuanese, and this expression is primarily used in Sichuanese and not in any other dialect of Chinese. And then you make a query in Cantonese, and then you compare the frequency of the number of hits Google returns, right? And this is a very crude way of estimating what is the proportion of language on the web, right? And now we can see that if we look at this, then Cantonese is considerably more frequent than for most of the terms, right? And then, in addition to this, so then the median confirms this. So the other way of looking at this is to look at the ratio. So then in general, Putonghua terms, they are something like 140 times more frequent than Sichuanese, and then the ratio of Cantonese to Sichuanese is about 23, right? So the Cantonese is in general has much better presence, and this is something we will see. So I think that this is one of my last slides, and then after that I will move on to A, right? So what is ChatGPT? We all know this. This is a large language model, and essentially what it has the only thing it knows is which word follows after which word. And so, but it's not based on remembering the exact sequences. It's based on making generalizations. And making generalizations are also, so on the one hand, so that, for example, if you have, I went to the shop to buy some, right? And then it needs to predict what some is, right? This was taken from a large corpus, so that then of actually occurring texts in English, and because of this, the trainer knows which word was going after that. In our case, but then the model doesn't, and then it needs to make a generalization so that it predicts, and then when it predicts, it needs to predict something which is reasonably close to what was said. So obviously, all the time there is some variation there, right? But a good model, a good generalizable model, remembers this, and this is the only thing which so the power of ChatGPT. The other thing is that it also does this multilingually. So then, if you have a sentence like this, so then a sentence in French, which means that not I went to the shop, but I came from the market. But then the context is somehow similar, right? And because the model needs to do this output, both in French and English, right? It needs, because the contexts are so similar, it needs to produce output, which is reasonably, so that in different contexts, it needs to be reasonably similar. And because of this, it learns the correspondences between English, French, Chinese, etc. So that if you have millions of sentences of this kind, then a good model is capable of actually understanding everything here, right? So this is so that then there is no, so that then people refer to artificial intelligence. There is not much intelligence there, right? So according to me, this is just a way of finding out, training in order to get the next word, right? And then and then in addition to the fact that it can do this across different languages, there are various emergent abilities of such models. So my two favorite examples is that if you ask ChatGPT to write an amendment to the American Constitution on a trivial topic, then it generates something which resembles the American Constitution. It resembles the language which is needed for legal text for amendments to the Constitution. And then if you take a trivial topic such as socks disappearing in the washing machine, then it will write a very, very convincing text about the legal provisions needed by the manufacturers of washing machines and by the laundry service providers, so that your socks remain intact after washing, right? So then the other thing is that it also then you have Joseph Brodsky got the Nobel Prize in 1987 in literature. So in that sense, it's not a very obscure name, but it's not very well known. And then he wrote a piece which is even less known, right? And then if you ask it to please write a summary of this text in Hungarian, it just doesn't, right? So then it produces a text which is very, very, very convincing, and that it actually is about. So then it's great. So then lots of things are good, so then or more or less interesting about ChatGPT. But then, if you want to study, so then what we suspected, and this suspicion was confirmed by the study, is that essentially you have also when you have a large language model, then on a minority language it can fail, right? So then again, getting back to this to this picture, so then you have I went to the shop to buy something, right? So then effectively it learned how to continue, right? How to produce the text further, right? But then this is then this turns them into stochastic patterns. So in this respect, this is so I wonder to what extent this is actual language, also that intelligence behind this, right? But then the other thing is that efficiency is good, but then they are so that even in major languages we know that they come with biases and hallucinations, right? This is an example. So if you ask it to translate, for example, a sentence like "the doctor was X," right? And if you translate this into a gendered language, so that in a language in which gender is explicitly marked, such as, for example, Spanish in this case, right? Then it will generate it for doctor. It will generate the masculine form, and for the nurse, it will generate the feminine form. And then it's not because it is so ChatGPT itself is inherently misogynistic, but because of out of the media that text it had, and then probably 200 of those texts talked about male doctors, and 10 texts talked about female doctors, right? And then in Spanish, and then this is precisely the way how it actually. So then, if you have a disbalance, then it starts generating following this disbalance. Right, and then it fails. And then in the case of minority languages, that's exactly the same thing. So that minority languages are less present in the training data, and therefore we can expect that something fails. Right. So the other thing, this is a numeric estimation that for smaller languages usually we have less data. So this is taken from another slide. I produced it for a different talk. So then we have a relatively infrequent word, isotropy, and but for English we have so then about 229 contexts, and because of this we can predict lots of the properties. So on the basis of this sample, right? And then we look into other languages such as Belarusian or Bulgarian or Polish, Russian, and Ukrainian. And then actually, so that only for Russian, we have a reasonable amount of examples to estimate something. So 1/3 of English, but still something which is usable. And for Polish, this is on the boundary of being usable. So then essentially what I have is L30 is that, so then how many words occur 30 or more times in the training set, right? Because if a word occurs 30 times, then it tends to predict reasonably well. So then the context in which this word is used, right? If a word is used less than 30 times, then hallucinations are more likely. Okay, and then we can see that even Polish is at the boundary of 30, and then all other languages they just so then a tool can't generalize from words like this. Okay, so I think that then I will move on and give the floor to Wade to talk about the kinds of prompts we employed.
Okay, thank you. So maybe I just talk here because I could manage the slides sometimes. And also I think we can record it after some reason. Anyway, so basically we took we use three types of examples for this research. So these examples are from very frequently used language, and as well as as well as from everyday life. So the first type is of examples is basically food and recipe. So we run experiments on two dishes. One's compound chicken, which is well represented, and maybe I'm not sure whether you have found Jimmy Oliver, but he actually has a recipe for it. I didn't look into it, but he does have it. And that one is stewed sweet potato. And the reason we chose these examples because the first dish, compound chicken, is very well known across the world. It's not everybody knows it, but most people will not be unfamiliar. So the second is to test ChatGPT's ability to recognize very distinctive Sichuanese words, like the word stew, kong. Actually, kong, sounds very different in Chinese. It's what we talk about every day, in every street, in every household. But unfortunately, most people don't know how to spell it because we don't learn written Chinese at school. And the second type of example is storytelling. It's kind of like I would say it's a meta example because the example itself of storytelling itself is about storytelling. So it's the word and the origin. Like the reason we go deeper into the origin of this word for story is because of the mistake, which I will review. And also we also ask ChatGPT to summarize a very famous Chinese novel. And the third one is about about informative texts. So basically just have late lunch and in this example are very distinctive Chinese words. And also the material craft, which is called seed making. So it's a traditional seed made of bamboo. And so I think this, we have a list of vocabulary for these examples because apparently it's not just English speakers. I mean, Mandarin speakers in the north or in any part of China outside of Sichuan probably wouldn't necessarily recognize them. So we have as you can see, it's kind of a combination of words that are functional words which don't mean anything, like way of ending a sentence, and also that very concrete words, for example, salt and spoon, and also very useful question words like how, and as well as what. So these are all used in the examples we use for the study. As for analysis, we have three main principles. One is linguistic properties of output. So we kind of we hope to have not just entire content in Sichuanese. I mean, because Chinese, Mandarin, Cantonese are all from Old Chinese. So it's not you can't just, it's not always a black and white difference between these words. But we expect at least some Sichuanese words. And then the second one is topics and biases, which is very interesting because we found some social linguistic biases, not just towards the language itself, but also the social context. And also the attempts to address the biases through dialogue. So for instance, just keeping correct ChatGPT that, ChatGPT that, the answer is incorrect, please do X, Y, and Z. And so I need to chat laptop before you battery. This one is too small.
Move the table there.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so as for recipes, so I kind of talk about the rationale behind each set of examples, but here we can look very specifically at why we choose these, why we're doing what we're doing. For recipes, it's very Chinese cuisine is very is major cuisine. And also it's very you can't find Chinese food around campus very easily. So the reason being, we choose such examples to just not to be too challenging for ChatGPT. So we have covered the breadth and depth. We're running these experiments. So I think for compound chicken, we can say it's for breadth, whereas for stewed sweet potato, it's more about the depth of ChatGPT's understanding. And common Chinese words are expected in ChatGPT's responses, which is like, not very ridiculous because we have very distinct words for each seasoning. For example, we say salt, yan ba, not yan, whereas we say chili as hai jiao, not la jiao, whereas these words are actually the same as Cantonese and Mandarin. So, and as for ChatGPT's understanding of very distinctive Chinese words, as I said, is for the in the case of stew is for the depth. So, and the result for compound chicken was it didn't go well, and the ChatGPT created the content in Mandarin only, and then we corrected the correct ChatGPT. We repeated the request of creating something in Sichuanese, and then just papered with a few Cantonese words, and most of them are functional words, so they don't really mean too much. So, for example, we have the verb be, is from Cantonese, as well as of. Sometimes it doesn't mean anything; it just indicator of an adjective. So, and all right. I mean, like, you can put it anywhere of the sentence; it doesn't matter. In this way, so we have these Cantonese words, but there's no. And this Cantonese word, there's no Chinese word in ChatGPT generated content. So it does repeat salt in Sichuanese in the response. I think like basically you pick up this word only and use it in the follow-up response. And as for the second example, which is how to stew sweet potatoes. So it's basically, the translation, I just try to make the translation as literal as possible. So this sentence is very, very Chinese, and it's basically like, you can't argue everybody is Chinese. He couldn't recognize sentence at all, and doesn't identify these words as Chinese. He asked me to use Chinese or recognizable Chinese or common English words to ask the question. But these words are Chinese words because every word in Chinese has very old or recent written origins, because Chinese people scrape everything. Let's put it that way. So and also that it becomes really inconsistent. So it's very difficult to correct ChatGPT when it comes to something outside of its its training. So it either insists it's an ancient word, which it probably is, or just say, oh, it's something appear after September 2021, which is ridiculously like ancient after 2021. So yeah, I mean, this example really didn't go anywhere. They didn't create something like fake Chinese, which means Cantonese Canton with some Cantonese words, as in the first example. But so from this example, we just I don't think he really says anything. So yeah, I just couldn't recognize call, which is weird because as I said, also Chinese people don't know how to spell it, but they say it every day. But actually, I found how to spell it on the internet. So although the hits are very a small number, but it's very accessible online. So the second type of example is narrative or storytelling. So the reason being, Chinese communities have very long-standing tradition of oral and written literature. So the most famous Chinese poets were both in Sichuan. So one was born and raised and lived in Sichuan, and the other one was born actually in Central Asia today, because he was born in the 7th century, but he lived all in his entire life in Sichuan. And also and also the modern Chinese literature also has a lot contribution from Sichuan based writers, and because the modern Chinese was really so basically people modernized Chinese in 1919, and during that time, very distinguished Chinese writers use a lot of Chinese words in the modern writing. So, but however, in this case, we didn't really have very positive outcomes. So for the first example, we just simply ask ChatGPT to basically tell us a story, but we use story in Sichuanese, so it's basically very you can't say it's a very vivid expression of a story, and it has a very like historical tradition. We'll come back to it later. So, and also like its origin, and also its original story, its origin for this word. So by ChatGPT couldn't tell the original story correct as well. And the second example is Jing's novel *The Family*, which was first published in 1933. We asked to give a summary of a plot twist. The plot twist is in vernacular Chinese, but it's very understandable. Actually, quite neutral. It's not like something with a lot of very peculiar or obscure expressions. So so the tests, the two aids are creating a story by using a little bit of Sichuanese words, as well as summarize something has been written in Sichuanese. So as for the first, result 2.1. So it's really funny. I hope you can see it on the screen. When I asked ChatGPT, tell me a story, to listen is actually redundant, but that's how we say it in daily conversation. And ChatGPT said, sure, I'm very happy to tell you a story. And the story is a formation of the dragons and doors, because the literary translation of the phrase story is dragon, door, or gate. Door and gate are the same words in Chinese, dragon, gate formation. In itself, it's not wrong, but I'm very amazed at why ChatGPT created emojis to resemble this literary translation, and which indicates that ChatGPT is actually quite advanced in user interaction because it probably could catch the casual terms and use very playful expressions to convey the meaning, although it's wrong, but it just kind of pick up the minor languages or dialects or whatsoever. And so hallucination in the follow-up contents are just ridiculous. So it keeps head, and so the phrase story, dragon gate formation, originally used. So it's like in English, the word mentor comes from the Odyssey. So because it's a character, its name is mentor. But today when we say, I'm going to have a coffee with my mentor, we don't mean we're going to have a coffee with an ancient Greek figure. So we just mean anyone who can advise you, right? So like this one story, when we talk about moments, then we actually mean a story rather than dragon gate formation, although that's where this word comes from. It has a very strong oral tradition of storytelling in China everywhere, but every community uses its own language variety to tell their stories. So this story, dragon gate formation, comes from a story cycle about a general Xue in the 7th century. So it's kind of like an author in Chinese-speaking communities. But ChatGPT couldn't understand the story, although the story is widely, retold or adapted to TV shows, not just in China but also Hong Kong, and also maybe some Asian communities speaking Chinese. So so it's very astounding actually, because Norman Zheng ban, but the origin of story should be recognizable. And for the second, as a result 2.2, so it's about the family story. The novel was set in Chengdu, it's the capital city of Sichuan province. Like you probably can see from the picture, it looks like it looks massive, like it's like Manchester, but ChatGPT keeps saying this noise about rural China, like probably because I don't know, like probably because it's about Sichuan, so it just kind of like automatically links it to the countryside. So, but apparently it's not. Although it looks pretty new, apparently it wasn't like this in 1933, but it has been the capital city of that province for centuries. I think from the beginning of the written history. So just to make sure we didn't accuse ChatGPT for being for being biased, so we use a comparative thread about Lao Tzu's novel. It's a rickshaw boy. And it was also written in the 1930s, and it's set in Beijing. And surprisingly, I didn't even basically ChatGPT just like summarized a plot twist. So it's about metropolitan life. You just immediately jump to the conclusion that this novel is set in Beijing, therefore, on the Beijing and also written by Beijing-based writer, so therefore it's a metropolitan novel, whereas the family about Chengdu is is considered as rural. So yeah, we kind of find this we find this kind of social linguistic bias is very obvious in this example. It's not necessarily about the language itself, but language is definitely part of the social fabric. And so hybridization, again, is factual errors. So we found the mistakes are, it's not like ChatGPT don't make mistakes in threads in Mandarin, but the mistakes are less far-fetched, or what we can say, compared with Sichuanese prompts generated examples. So again, I think ChatGPT has this kind of trick of keep saying something. So whenever it's challenged, it keeps saying the questions about something happened after September 2021. And so I think the last type is informative texts, and the rationale is again to inquire. So it's to see if they can understand keywords so first lunch and noon is they're referred to by one word, and late in Sichuanese. So there are various Chinese words. And also the second aim is to see if ChatGPT can respond with a few Chinese words when describing how to make a sieve. Maybe more limited to how to make a sieve, but that's our main tip. So for the result 3.1, it actually ChatGPT can understand lunch or noon. Some, actually, I don't really say that. I feel the older generation may say that. And late is and. It's very it appeared in the novel I mentioned before, Budget's the Family. So I think about they correct them into Mandarin. So what happened is that after I asked this question, is it too late to have lunch at 4 p.m., including these keywords, and ChatGPT repeat the question and rephrase it into standard Mandarin. And then after asking the second question, it corrected me. So it's very clear. It becomes really, really clear in the follow-up response that ChatGPT correct me, saying the way I ask questions are wrong. You should be, I should use Mandarin words rather than these words, because these words are old, ancient. So I think the reason they can recognize late and is probably because it comes from Confucius. It's canonical text, and also it's also used in Cantonese, but with it also uses Cantonese to refer to late, but also as well as lunch. So there's kind of crossover here. So as for the last one, is making a sieve. Sieve is very commonly used, not just in rural areas, but also I think most people making seeds probably in the countryside, but they are also very popular in cities. Like my mom sometimes asks people to, like, to try to find some seeds, whether we live in cities. So when asked question how to make a sieve, and again you can't understand it, but back and forth, I rephrase it in standard Mandarin, and it generates a response in Mandarin that decorated with a few Cantonese words, as in the very first example of compiled chicken. And so, I think the reason that the ChatGPT can understand the word, the key word for sieve, is probably because the word also exists in Cantonese, but I believe Cantonese because side, which is also in Mandarin more often, but sieve forms part of the place name in Hong Kong. So it's not like something only exists in Sichuanese. And also, again, the ChatGPT could only respond to my prompt by after rephrase it in standard Mandarin. So yeah, that's basically the analysis we have done and the results we have found. And Jenny will tell. Do you
want to use that one?
Can I use this or?
Well, I use it. Okay, you use that. I'll use this. Yeah. So just briefly. Whoops. What's happening? Yeah. So what we're seeing when ChatGPT is asked to produce something in Sichuanese, is that it's shifting to a bigger language, and it's interpreting Sichuanese. Okay, it's a Chinese language, in that case it must be Mandarin. And if it's really pushed, then it will stick in sticking Cantonese words into the response. Although Cantonese is further from Sichuanese and Mandarin. Correction to a proper language or refusal. This is interesting to say, I'm sorry, I just can't understand. And then the fact these hallucinations, is this a specific term to work on ChatGPT or AI?
Yes, so the word hallucination is, I know that this is not a medical term, so that it's not used in the medical sense. But then in AI, so then if you ask a model to do something, and then it outputs, but then this something. Yeah. So from our experience, has nothing to do with the real world. But then people refer to this as a hallucination. Yeah. Because, okay, technically this is similar to hallucinations. Yeah. So effectively, when there is an output from one of the AI models, and it has nothing to do with the real world, and this is a reason. This is easily checkable that this has nothing to do with the real world. Then this is a kind of
described as hallucination.
So then my favorite example is that ChatGPT declared that it wrote my biography, which was mostly factually correct, except that it ended with
2018.
Yes, I died in 2018. Right, so a typical case of. So I hope that.
Give listen to our panel. It's just possible that we have an episode of that coming up. Yeah. So politics and society is coming in that ChatGPT is basically thinking, okay, Chinese should be Putonghua, Mandarin, and then the role of the media, TV, and the film. So Serge said Cantonese has a lot fewer speakers than Sichuanese. It's about 80 million, so it's massively less than Sichuanese, which is 120 million. But because of its role within the media, TV, and film, its presence on the web is far greater than that of Sichuanese. And you've got the spoken versus written varieties, and ways talked about a lot of, most of the time, Sichuanese is not going to be written, it's spoken language. Sometimes you can't find the symbol, what do you call them, the characters for the words. And so one of the questions where it leads us with minority languages, one of the things that I really like about this is that it's not a question of the number of speakers. And it's something that Alison said, that for a language to be endangered, it doesn't necessarily just have to have 100 speakers. It can be, there are a number of ways in which it can be endangered. And then we thought we needed future experiments with other languages which are somehow minority within their political and state geographical regions, such as I told you about this book, so I've just been reading a book by Julia Barnes. It was written in 1986. It's called Staring at the Sun. And the hair started creeping up my back when he talked about the general program computer or practical computer or something. I can't remember what that means. GPC. And he's describing ChatGPT basically. He's asking this computer things to get the TAT, the absolute truth, and it's responding. This was written in 1986. He's talking about 2020. In 1986, he didn't know what 2020 was going to look like. This is before Google. Isn't it?